Alaska, a place not unfamiliar to those who pay attention to mysterious reports from around the globe. Although this gigantic landmass boasts a population of less than 1 million people, the amount of strange and unordinary occurrences here exceeds almost anywhere else in the world. Today we'll be taking a look at not just one isolated incident, but a series of mysterious events that caused the exile and abandonment of an entire thriving and well-established town. This is the story of Portlock, Alaska, and the unknown monstrosity, or monstrosities, that live there. Portlock, Alaska was a bustling town established in the Kenai Peninsula region in the early 20th century. It's named after Captain Nathaniel Portlock, a British ship captain that sailed the region in 1786. From humble beginnings, the town slowly grew as it exploited the bountiful natural resources that the area had to offer. The opportunities were endless, with an abundance of trees for logging operations, a rich ecosystem to harvest both fish and furs, and even nearby valuable minerals to conduct mining expeditions. From the very start, the future looked incredibly bright for Portlock. But this all began to change when residents ran into some unforeseen circumstances. While early documentation is scarce, the first records show that in 1905, all of the workers in the Portlock cannery left their jobs due to something mysterious that was bothering the camp. The details are few and far between and much is left unknown, but upon returning to the positions the next season, unexplained noises, sightings, and occurrences continue to be reported. This has led some to believe that the area was haunted from the very start. In the 1920s, a man named Albert Pekka had a run-in with an extremely strange and unidentifiable creature in the woods of Portlock. He supposedly scared off the hairy creature with his dogs, but not before receiving a powerful and catastrophic blow to the chest. Pekka survived briefly and attempted to relay what happened to fellow townsfolk, but he did ultimately succumb to his injury. Bear attacks were common, especially in the early days of the last frontier, but residents claimed Pekka's injuries did not resemble those a bear would cause. The details of his death remain a mystery to this day. Fast forward a decade and Portlock continued to grow despite a general uneasiness among residents. The population evolved from primarily men who traveled to the area for work into more of a homestead, with several families making it their permanent residence. Around 1931 is where our story really kicks into gear, with a brutal murder that would cascade into a myriad of unexplainable events. One of the many loggers in the area was out performing his daily routine when someone or something slammed him over the head with an enormous piece of logging equipment, likely killing him instantly. When his body was found, there was blood in the equipment, and upon further examination, it became apparent that no one man could have caused this. The body of the victim was around 10 feet or 3 meters from the equipment that he was bludgeoned with, so it was extremely unlikely that he had simply fallen and struck his own head. Reports indicate that it looked like a third party had somehow lifted the massive equipment and violently swung it at the man before fleeing the area. To this day, there's no confirmed explanation for this Portlock citizen's death, but residents had their suspicions. The locals perpetuated rumors of a particular creature that many of us may associate with what we know as a Bigfoot or a Yeti. In the native dialect, it was known as a Nantinaq, which roughly translates to big, hairy creature. Although thought to be half man and half beast, the legend of this creature has permeated this region for centuries, and some residents claim to be all too familiar with it. Reports of its sightings were prevalent, though details vary widely between different instances. Some saw a generic large hairy bipedal creature that would stalk their town at dusk. Others claimed to have seen the spirit of a woman dressed in black clothing that would appear above the cliffs around the town. They described her as wearing a black dress that would drag far behind her, with a deathly white and pale face. She would supposedly let out excruciatingly loud wails and moans on certain nights, especially if there was a sleet or snowstorm coming. Whenever a brave villager armed themselves and went to investigate this creature's appearance, she would vanish before they could reach her. One group of men that were hunting a large moose reported finding giant footprints that seemed to also be stalking the same moose. When they found the creature that they were after, it had been torn to shreds, with little remaining of the entire moose except for an immense amount of blood. The footprints were reported as being about 18 inches, or around 46 centimeters long. No one was sure what creature would be capable of pulverizing a moose in the manner that they had seen. In a separate incident, it was alleged that a resident saw a huge, hairy man destroying fish wheels along the local beach. The man who witnessed this ran to get his rifle, but upon his return, the beast simply stared at him and walked off, warranting no necessary retaliation. According to his description, townsfolk believed it to be the Yeti. After the logger's mysterious death, things only seemed to get worse for the people of Portlock. Several hunters and prospectors would go missing, so often that it became commonplace. If you ventured into the surrounding woods or outside the town's limits, you had to be prepared for anything. According to reports, the missing sometimes found their way home, only in a few more pieces than when they had left. Arms, legs, decapitated heads, all sorts of extremities would find their way back to Portlock after washing up in the local bay or on one of the rivers, oftentimes unidentifiable. It's estimated that a grand total of 36 individuals either went missing or were killed in mysterious fashion around the town. That's an extraordinary amount of people for how small the population was, even considering how rough Alaska's landscape could naturally be. The limbs and other body parts littering the local waterways was perhaps the strangest part of everything. Bears or other predators would likely consume or drag off the bodies of their victims, not dump them off in the water. It seemed almost as if someone or something was trying to send a message. While a deranged Alaskan serial killer had been theorized, they certainly would have taken out a lot of people over the course of a multi-decade-long period. And to hide their involvement amongst such a close-knit community seems difficult and unlikely. After years and years of this from strange creatures and considering the local folklore that leaving town for any reason was extremely dangerous, people had had enough. Townsfolk abandoned Portlock en masse, despite developing it into a financially successful and industrious area. Residents left behind their jobs, their homes and possessions overnight after reaching a boiling point. Since 1950, the town of Portlock, Alaska has remained desolate and abandoned. All that remains today are the ruins of those who once called this place home. An abandoned mine tunnel, house pilings, and rusted cannery equipment are about all you'll find. What do you think happened in Portlock? Was it really a Bigfoot-esque creature that was terrorizing the residents of this Sleepy Hollow? Is it possible that they had a serial killer amongst them that operated for over 20 years? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you as always for watching and stay tuned for next week's video.